I'm joined by Alanna O'Malley, who's in The Hague. She's an associate professor of international studies at Leiden University. First of all, Alanna, we were hearing about the news of this development at the UNGA, but just remind us of what Israel's obligations are towards Gaza and the other occupied territories in terms of humanitarian aid and service provision. What does the law say they should be doing?
Well, we've had successive advisory opinions now issued on this question, and all of them reiterate Israel's responsibility not to impede or to prevent the provision of essential humanitarian aid to the people of Gaza and the Palestinian people in the occupied territories, and also to allow them access to essential resources like heat, electricity, water, and the general natural resources that they require. So we've had a number of advisory opinions issued in this, previous 12 months. And now what we see with this resolution is a call for another advisory opinion issued by the court to require Israel to really allow for the provision of adequate humanitarian aid as they continue to fail to do so, despite efforts to try to open those corridors and to try to get access for aid agencies into the Strip, especially since last year and the beginning of the October 7th war.
So, Alanna, we have the law itself, then, as you say, we've had successive advisory opinions. What's the point of another one then? What difference can it make in future?
Well, there's three reasons why this is an important moment to do this. The first one, of course, is that it's an effort to try to reiterate the importance of Israel's obligations to the international community and to the international court as a member of the UN. The second reason is that, of course, in the geopolitical climate now, we're going to have a change of regime in the United States. We're also at the point of really trying to consider how is the situation in the Middle East a little bit different, a little bit more tense. We have had, this incursion into Lebanon by Israel. We've had the incursion into Syria. We've had a change of regime in Syria. So the geopolitical situation in the Middle East is different now than it was even 12 months ago. And so that puts more pressure on Israel and Israel's allies to really provide at the very least, humanitarian aid to the people who are suffering in Gaza, with the aim of thinking about a long-term peaceful resolution of this conflict. And then the third reason, of course, is that this is a difficult time of year in the sense of the devastation that has been rendered upon the Palestinian people for so long is really has desecrated the population. And this really increases the onus on not just Israel to respond to this, but also, again, on Israel's allies and supporters, but also on the international community and on the system of international law to provide a resolution through successive resolutions and through successive opinions to try to alleviate the suffering of the Palestinians.
And how long might it take for the ICJ then to deliver this advisory opinion, and what actually might happen? Of course, you've mentioned pressure, but in practical terms, what might happen subsequently?
So we've seen the court actually move with surprising speed in the last 12 months on this question. So we may expect that an advisory opinion would come quite quickly on this, especially given the scale of humanitarian suffering and the urgency that's attached to this issue, and also the pressure around this question, right? So it's partially, you have, of course, the issue of the pressure on Israel from its allies and from its traditional supporters, and whether or not that can be leveraged to encourage or to oblige Israel to abide by these resolutions. And the other question is the pressure on the international community to, stop standing by and allowing this suffering to continue, but to actually find a way to enable the UN and especially to enable aid agencies to do their job on the ground. And I think that this is becoming quite significant because the UN's position throughout this conflict has become quite marginalized, both politically but also in terms of what the humanitarian organizations, including UNRWA, can actually do. And I think this is a moment at which we see the member states of the UN trying to, clear the way to assert the provisional role for the UN in at least being able to provide aid, provide essential materials to the Palestinians. And this is a really good example of the political organs of the UN working with a mind towards enhancing the agency of UN actors on the ground to allow them to provide that essential role.
All right, Alanna O'Malley from The Hague, thank you so much for that detailed insight there.